On the SportsMax Zone, Novak Djokovic's hunt for a record-extending 10th Australian Open title is back on, at least for the moment. This after an immigration judge ruled that Australia's border force agents acted unreasonably when they rescinded his visa and tried to deport him for violating COVID vaccine rules upon arrival in the country last Wednesday. The judge's ruling freed the world number one from immigration custody, but he still faces the prospect of deportation after the country's immigration minister, Alex Hawke, who has the unilateral power to revoke individual visas, says he's actively considering the move. Following his release, the 34-year-old Djokovic, who is also seeking a record 21 Grand Slam singles titles, tweeted this to his legion of fans: "I'm pleased and grateful that the judge overturned my visa cancellation. Despite all that has happened, I want to stay and try to compete at the Australian Open. I remain focused on that. I flew here to play at one of the most important events we have in front of the amazing fans." So that is the latest. The story not completely done and dusted, George and Mariah. So in the coming days, it is possible that we could hear some more on this story. In the meantime, Djokovic's family back in his native Serbia have described the appeal verdict as the biggest win of his career. It is bigger, they say, than any Grand Slam he has won. As a boy, he was taught not to put up with lies and cheating. He has always fought for justice. He did nothing wrong. He hasn't broken any of their laws. He was subjected to torture, to harassment. He fought against the system and against the government. He felt he had the right to be there. Never before have we faced a situation like this. It was extremely difficult for us, but justice did prevail. He has been freed. Yeah, freed, but based on the stories coming out of Australia, the story could still have a twist or two remaining, George and Mariah.
Yeah, it's up to the Australian government whether they decide to deport Djokovic. And the thing is, Lance and George, for me, I like to put things into context. And where Australia is concerned, we know how they've been pushing getting the vaccine. They have a 90% vaccination rate. And even so, you know, they have very strict protocols in place for the citizens of Australia. So I understand where they're coming from in that sense, but I also like to look at it from the fact that, you know, the Australian Open without Novak Djokovic would be a massive loss. You know, I would hate to not see him be able to defend his title. He is number one for the type of tennis that he plays, and just not having him would be a massive hit for the Australian Open. But Australia, the government, they're in charge of the rules, and it's up to them what they want to do.
His family says he's now free from torture and from harassment. He landed in Australia on Wednesday last week, so he would have spent 5 days in detention. And because of where he was kept, his family say, look, this is akin to torture. He's forced to eat food not cooked by his personal chef, but food cooked by the chef on duty at the immigration facility. So let's call it 6 days. So 6 days he's been in detention. There are people at the immigration facility that Novak Djokovic was held at who've been there for 10 years. People who've been trying to do what has been fast-tracked for Djokovic. This must be a record. A man gets his visa turned down on Wednesday, and by the Monday after, he goes before a judge. And on the same day, the judge rules and it is done and dusted. There are many immigrants at that hotel who are waiting to still go through the same process. Some there for as long as 10 years, not 6 days like Mr. Djokovic. The thing to consider is this. The anti-vax movement, they have their second poster boy, and now they have a white poster boy. Their first poster boy was one Kyrie Irving, who plays for Brooklyn Nets in the NBA.
Yeah.
And their second poster boy is now one Mr. Novak Djokovic. So the forums and the groups that Facebook and the other big social media sites were trying to get rid of and had reduced significantly from populating their platform with anti-vax sentiment and alternative science and all this. Those groups now have a second win because now they can put a face. Look at this man. He fought the system. Look at Kyrie. He fought the system. Novak fought the system as well. And this is what we mean, that you have the right to choose what you want to do. And Djokovic is preaching this. He wants to have the right to determine what to do with his body. But he went to court and fought the right of the Australian government to choose not to give him a visa. A wise man once said to me many years ago, there's no such thing as an absolute right, and conflicts will always emanate when you will not give any ground in your advocacy for your right to be upheld, and somebody else whose defense of their right is different from yours. When those things clash, where will resolution come? And that's just what we have.
Yeah, but Lance said something, George, that he gets the sense that, it's not done and dusted here with the Australian government is concerned. Do you see them, standing up by what they believe and telling Djokovic, get out of my country?
From a malicious perspective, I want them to rule again and to rescind the visa. But practically, it wouldn't make much sense. Here's why. The same judge who ruled in this case is the same judge who the matter will go before. If they go and remove his visa again, that matter will go before the same judge, and it is highly unlikely. You may have success if it was a jury trial. You could sway the jury with a different set of circumstances. But the same judge who admonished the government in many respects, and the government's lawyers in making this case, I don't see them getting any change out of this judge. And for that reason alone, I think they'll say, you know what, let's take an L on this one and move on.
Yeah, you know what? I listened to an international reporter based in Serbia today, and he was suggesting that while the Serbians, for the most part, fell 100% behind Djokovic, there are pro-vax people living in Serbia who felt as if, all Novak had to do was to take the vaccine, and it would also set an example for the struggling vaccination process in Serbia, being who he is. So while he has had the support from back home coming fully behind him, there is the view, albeit maybe in a minority from Serbia, that they're not in agreement with his stance on vaccination. But being a Serbian and being in the position he was, the country on a whole sort of fell behind in support of Novak.
Yeah, I know Novak at the Australian Open. A big hit, eh?
Yeah, but that can't be a consideration though, because look, again, we always talk about this a lot on the show, about dueling self-interests and groups with one self-interest against other groups with another self-interest.
But that's how society is.
And that's how life is. So the state government in Victoria wants the biggest draw for the Australian Open to be there, to put bums on seats and to get people logging into the stream to watch the games. The Australian government has to be seen to be making it a case of one rule for all and no preferential treatment for anybody, especially if that person is a millionaire, a multi-millionaire, and one of the most famous sportsmen in the world at this time. So it has to be seen to not be kowtowing to the power of celebrity, and also to be ensuring that citizens are treated the same way as guests to the country. Because if you have a visa to go in a country, you go there because you're a guest, at the privilege of the country. But what this also proves is that the court is a heaven of a thing. I know it's not a usual phrase, heaven of a thing. We normally say hell of a thing. It's a heaven of a thing. Can you imagine? A country can tell you that we are withdrawing your visa privileges to visit this country. Please go home. You can go to a judge in the said country, and the judge says, I'm siding with you. The country can, you know what, do what.
Keep your visa.
There you go. And it's amazing. So a court is a heaven of a thing. But I'm just saying, for this whole thing, I think Djokovic has been unprincipled. I think it's a victory for the anti-vax movement. The world would be better off if more people were vaccinated. And I genuinely feel that we're going to, this is an example of it. The world is going steadily to a place, Lance Mariah, where this battle for rights is going to have a big stalemate one day. One side not giving any ground, the other side not conceding any ground, because both sides believe that they have the right to assert their rights. Djokovic is saying he has the right. He should have the right to put whatever he wants into his body. But he's also saying that he has the right to go to Australia, and that his right to go to Australia is stronger than the right of the Aussies to say, we don't want you in Australia. That's where we are.
You know, Rafa Nadal had called the entire issue a circus, and the report actually said he jokingly said that he would prefer to play the Australian Open without Novak.
Yeah, but it sounds like a circus. It is a circus.
It's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
When you have money, you can do anything.
No, but I want to see when all the Australian cricketers now go to the government and say, but they're already vaccinated. Crap, too late. Break time?
Yeah.